Mr. Shittu, just think, let's just assume that maybe the secretary, let's say in spite of the underfunding, you've reeled out some of the successes of the EFCC.
Yes.
The question will be, why is it that in spite of our best efforts, we still seem to be lagging behind on the transparency ratings?
I think it is because of several factors. I think one clear factor is the issue of political will on the part of the leadership. When we are talking of the leadership now, it is not just the executive. The leadership across all levels.
And what is that political will?
Political will is that you must lead by example. You must be ready to demonstrate that you are against corruption. And that must be reflected in your actions. You must show clearly that you have stronger laws in place and these laws are effective to combat corruption.
So that is not happening right now as we speak.
It is not happening enough. And that's the reason why, if it is happening enough, then the anti-graft agencies will not be underfunded.
As they claim. If at all they have.
As is the reality.
But how many people?
As the reality. And I think that should engage our attention. Because when you are fighting corruption, what you are trying to rid the society of vices that can stall the developmental process.
Because what you've also mentioned, yes, you've talked about some of these convictions, but what some people are also noticing is that it would seem that there's been no high profile, as we like to say, high profile convictions secured, and even those that have been secured looks like it was secured shoddily or a thorough job wasn't done. As well,
I mentioned to you
as we're saying right now.
The case of a chairman of a local government who was recently convicted by the Federal High Court, Lokoja. That was a case that I prosecuted successfully.
Well, remember that case?
Yes, and that is high profile. And there are other cases. In the last 10 years, EFCC has managed to secure over 1,000 convictions of high profile cases.
Over.
And it's difficult, and you need to understand that it's very difficult to investigate and prosecute corruption.
Why?
Because there are a lot of agencies involved. So somebody who is corrupt is likely to want to, they are designing new methods, new ways to conceal their loot.
Yeah,
so you need to have an effective mechanism in place to investigate corruption, and to prosecute corruption.
Let me bring this perspective in, because you sometime a minute ago said, look, this fight against corruption has to be a collective one.
Yes.
Well, how do people come to that collectivism when some of them, for instance, Ogundikwe Benson says EFCC has been a lame duck under this government? If people don't see them as the agency that is doing enough, the high-profile cases, how many of them are there? What do they tell? What do people know about them? The perception that people have about the agency is somewhat below ebb.
I think we are also being very unfair to EFCC. Statutorily, what is the limit of EFCC?
In terms of?
EFCC, for instance, is an investigative body. After investigation, EFCC, puts in place machinery for prosecution.
They also prosecute.
But at that stage, a lot of other players are also involved at the stage of prosecution. EFCC does not own the court.
Yeah, but
you understand what I'm saying?
Some say 80% of it lies with investigation. If you do a thorough job in investigation, consider your case done.
I think that is what the present leadership of EFCC is emphasizing. And that's why some people think they are not doing enough. It's because the present leadership of EFCC is determined to do thorough investigation.
But how many people see that?
I think that is important. And that is important, and people have to see that.
Is that what you're noticing there?
Yes, I also noticed that they have put in place machinery for thorough investigation of cases before charging them to court. So when there is public outcry, that a crime has been perpetrated, people should also be patient enough to allow the anti-graft agencies do a thorough work.
But how
rather than being stampeded to go into court.
For instance, now, you talk about people being patient. So many cases have happened. Nigerians sometimes just give up, throwing their arms into the air and say, look, we don't even know if any of this will happen. Maybe if there is no prompting, either by the AGF or is it even the presidency, who knows if EFCC will move in. You know, so many of the recent cases, the aviation matter, there's so many of them, but others would have thought that the EFCC, without any invitation, would have just moved in and then demonstrate to the people that, look, we're here for good.
I think EFCC is doing, making a lot of efforts in that direction. But like I said, the issue of funding. How do you proceed? How do you move effectively in the absence of funds? You need funds to investigate. You need funds to prosecute. You need funds to follow up prosecution. You need funds to be deployed in training.
So are they saying they don't have enough funds now?
And I think they don't have enough funds, and the blame should go to the doorstep of the legislature and the executive, who are not making enough provision for these anti-graft agencies.
But the commission would do well to give a breakdown of what they have before, because if they got a good case, why wouldn't the assembly listen to them?
Those are the statistics. You can see. If within the last 10 years, EFCC has been able to secure well over 1,000 convictions.
No high-profile ones.
I've told you, I've mentioned one. There are other ones being handled by...
That's a local government.
No, apart from that, I'm aware that the convictions secured by the foremost prosecutor in EFCC, Rotimi Jacobs,
Of who?
The pension, some cases were EFCC, the one being prosecuted by Festus Keyamo.
It's almost becoming a payoff
so
now.
Reverse in the Supreme Court, but
okay.
These convictions were secured at the level of the High Court.
I know you heard several times. It's almost becoming a payoff on the lips of Nigerians now that no big man goes to jail in this country.
No big man?
Yes, goes to jail in this country.
Okay, what efforts are you making?
That's the commission.
To ensure that the big man goes to jail.
That's what the commission should tell us.
That is why we are saying that you need to strengthen the commission.
Yeah, but you're not
strengthen the commission by adequate funding.
Mr. Shittu, give us your perspective on the Supreme Court's ruling, if you have seen it.
The Supreme Court ruling
on Bode George.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the Supreme Court is the highest court in the land. I think the Supreme Court has pronounced that Bode George stands acquitted. Who am I to query the wisdom of the Supreme Court? I think what we should be happy about is that rule of law has taken its course, and that EFCC pursued the case from the High Court to the Supreme Court level. You see, when people get acquitted after the legal process has been exhausted, we should applaud the process, because there's a distinction between fighting corruption at the expense of the rule of law and fighting corruption within the context of respect for the rule of law. So what has happened in the case of Bode George is that rule of law has triumphed. The Supreme Court has looked at the case, they have examined the merits of the case, and they have, in their wisdom, concluded that Bode George and others stand acquitted. EFCC may have criticized that judgment. Some people may not agree with that. But one Supreme Court has made a pronouncement. That is the highest court in the land. And we must learn to respect and applaud that decision.
Yeah, but some people will also say, sorry, just a moment, some people also say that if that is the case, are we also looking at compensation here? Because it means that he was wrongfully convicted and he served time.
Well, if he feels wrongfully convicted, it is not for us here to discuss the issue of compensation. He can set the legal machinery in motion. If what EFCC has done is to put legal machinery in motion to ensure that he was investigated and prosecuted.
Okay.
And if the High Court finds in favor of EFCC And if the Court of Appeal also found in favor of EFCC, and if you now got acquitted at the level of the Supreme Court, that is the legal machinery working.
Okay,
I don't see how such a compensation
we have to let it go here, but there's so many
succeed.
Legal matters which we'll get back to you on, so you could shed some light for them on those matters for us. But we have to thank you for coming on this morning. Mr. Shittu lectures in law and also a legal practitioner. Well, back after this break. Could you join us again?